Hello, everyone. Welcome to Incubeta Ignite. Today's webinar will be focused on driving Facebook growth through the full funnel strategy. Before we start, I'm going to handle some housekeeping here. The webinar is about 30 minutes. We're going to have some questions that you can put into the chat, and we will address at the end of the presentation. The session is being recorded and will be shared through email for anyone who registered. Craig Brown, the head of delivery for NMPI US, will be taking you through this session. He's been with us for about 7 years. He's been leading the US for about 2 years. There's some interesting facts about Craig there. My name is Ed Camargo. I'll be moderating your session, and I'm going to hand it off to Craig now to get us started.
Hi, everyone. Apologies for my slightly disheveled look at the moment. It's not very easy to get out and get a haircut at the moment, apparently. So I think before we start, we just want to address sort of the current situation on what we're seeing as an agency. It feels like it's the right thing for us to do at this moment in time with you all together. So what we're seeing across the industry and focusing on the industries really is retail is seeing significant decreases in demand. We're seeing a lot of spend pulled back by advertisers, particularly any advertisers that rely on any offline element. So anyone who's heavily reliant on stores requires an offline action, which isn't really a surprise. I think everybody's aware that travel has pretty much grounded, and all advertising for most travel companies has pretty much been suspended when it comes to paid. And what we're really seeing is any industry and any companies that can help people entertain or sustain themselves at home, things such as online gaming, e-learning, wine delivery, all food deliveries really they're really what we're seeing thrive at the moment. From a media perspective, depending what industry you're in, we're really seeing changes in demand by consumers, which therefore affects impression volume from where we'd expect it to be, especially at this time of year. But because of that and the way things are, we're also seeing a lot of people pull out of the market. So from a display side of things, we're seeing CPMs have dropped 15 to 20%. So display is a big opportunity if you believe you can still push through things. And as we all know, there's been huge increases, I'm sure you've all done it yourself, in online streaming. So in the US, the OTT and CTV inventory has gone up significantly. I know YouTube seeing significant increases in volume as well. So again, if you do anything with video and you believe now is an opportunity to take advantage of some of these cheaper CPMs and an increase in inventory, there's definitely opportunities for you out there to make the most of this. We wanted to also provide a little bit of context around what you can be doing at the moment. So with decreases in traffic and site traffic for a lot of customers, we're seeing that ability to make site updates and tech updates that maybe you've been putting off because you don't want to influence high traffic volume. With lower traffic volume, it gives you an ability to really delve into that and make some of those changes you've maybe been putting off. Making sure that you've got your analytics platforms set up and configured the way you want. In this time, I'm sure you've all got this same number of emails that I have. This is a really good chance to engage with your customers, but you need to have your CRM properly segmented to be able to do that. And now's a really good time to do some in-depth analysis, but also segmentation of what's happening in your CRM. Make sure you get ahead of that creative curve. I think one of the biggest challenges we have with clients is their ability to produce creative and sometimes the timeframes that it takes for creative to be pushed through. Now's a really good time to get ahead of that curve and make sure that you've got the creative you need for when things undoubtedly go back to a more level of normality. I don't want to say normal because I don't think anyone knows what normal is going to be like after this. And the biggest thing is you prepare to go to that opportunity of when we do see that more normal level is make sure you do the analysis to understand what drives your business. If you do have a bit of downtime, look into what's driving performance through your site from a device element, from a socioeconomic element, from a geographic element. Make sure you know where your biggest revenue drivers are so you know what to hit. And we think the biggest thing is plan for the opportunities that are going to present themselves for you and for your business. One client said to me, you're not going to be judged by the impact that coronavirus has. You're going to be judged by how the business comes out of it the other side. And I think that definitely rings true. A lot of us have got our hands tied at the moment, but it's what we do at the other end of this that's really going to define whether we're a successful team or not. So having just addressed that, we'll now go into what the webinar is actually about, which is driving Facebook growth. And what we're going to do through that is we're going to focus on the funnel. Now, a lot of people will be very familiar with the marketing funnel, and what we've done is we've focused on the Facebook funnel here. Now, a lot of people, Facebook is obviously a social channel, but we've started to referring to Facebook in isolation. Facebook is so big that it demands to be viewed on its own, not in the full social landscape. Social obviously is a landscape, but Facebook really needs to be set aside. It warrants that status just because of the volume that goes through it on a daily basis. As we look at this funnel, we've split it into awareness, engagement, and conversion. And what we'll talk through is the type of creative to use at each element of the funnel, the type of placements we'd recommend, but more importantly, the KPIs. How you measure the funnel really will define whether it is successful for you or not. So as we focus on awareness initially, video ads and experience ads are the best way to get your brand across. This is where you're trying to speak to cold new customers, and so you really need to start telling a story. In terms of the placements, using stories across Facebook and Instagram and Messenger are really important. News feeds, and also using Messenger ads as well. And the type of KPIs you should be looking at is new site visits, views, and the type of page engagement you're getting from your customers. The more likes you're getting, likes, comments, those sort of things are really, really important at this point, because it allows you to have then a continual conversation with these new customers that you're bringing in. So first of all, how do you understand where you should maybe start looking at some of your top of the funnel audiences? Now, Facebook's got a tool which is free called Facebook Audience Insights. Now, what this does is it looks at your page followers or page likes and indexes you against everybody across Facebook. And what this does is it gives you a really good indication of who actually likes your page and who's engaging with your brand on Facebook. So you can see, not only does it give you the demographic makeup, but you can also pull things like the type of jobs that they work in. And then in the bottom right, what we have is the type of pages that other people are liking. So it's a really, really good way for you to look at who your audience on Facebook is and how to engage with them. And we definitely recommend doing that in advance of building any awareness, because it really allows you to help build a view of where you should be trying to build your awareness to start off with. Now, we mentioned stories and why stories are so important. Particularly from a brand awareness side of things, what we've seen with a lot of our clients is that stories aren't amazing at driving direct sales, but that's not what they're there for. They are there, they're very engaging, particularly on Instagram. It makes up so much of how people engage with Instagram. And there are some real benefits to it. The CPMs are significantly lower than what you see through any other area within the Facebook, Instagram environment. And because of that, it means you get much lower cost per views, but also you get much higher view through rates, which is really important. But also it gives you an opportunity to use video. And we know that Facebook particularly are pushing video really hard. And it's because it's really engaging. And that really does then allow you to tell a story. Now, we know video can be daunting for a lot of brands, but it really doesn't need to be. Particularly within Facebook and Instagram, they have a tool which allows you to turn your images into video. So you don't even need to have gone out and created a video yourself. Facebook's got tools within it that will allow you to turn static images into a video. Now, with stories and the way they are and the way they work, we'd really recommend keeping your videos to between 6 and 10 seconds. And of course, make sure they're vertical. one big thing nowadays, if you're working with your creative teams, is make sure you're shooting both portrait and landscape. Make sure that you have vertical video, because it's going to become more and more important as mobile continues to become an even more important device than it already is. In terms of video best practice, and this comes from YouTube, the biggest online video platform that there is at the moment. So they definitely know what they're doing and how videos work. Winning the first 5 seconds is the most important thing. I think we all know that we've got really short attention spans, but if you look at the fact that YouTube was skippable ads, you can skip after 5 seconds, and they've introduced bumper ads that are 6 seconds. It definitely shows the science behind being able to get a clear message over in those first 5 seconds. So really, that's what you need to do. You need to get that message across. And then if people are prepared to watch longer, you have more time to get across more things, but you need to be the customer needs to know everything about who you are and what you do in those first 5 seconds. I think particularly the most important part is who you are. The amount of brands who don't include some mention of themselves in the first 5 seconds is quite frankly shocking. And it means they're wasting media spend. Video can also really help you improve funnel messaging. And if we look at this was done by our partner, our sister agency, Joystick. And what this does is it really allows you to go through and choose and almost create your own personal effect and what the highest concern is. That then really allows you to feed this further down the funnel and make sure that you're hitting people with relevant messages. Now, the biggest concern that people have with upper funnel is it actually working, and how do I measure it? So we talked about some of the KPIs you can use, but also there's a couple of things that we'll talk through to prove that value. The first is using a brand lift study that Facebook can do alongside you. So speak to your Facebook rep about this, but this allows you to ask questions to people. If you work in digital marketing and you see these little questionnaires come up in Facebook and Instagram, you should definitely be filling out those surveys. Reason being is that if you don't, who else can we rely on doing it? So we're looking at ad recall, brand awareness, or brand interest. And then Facebook is measuring these things. It allows you to choose from a subset of questions, and it then really allows you to measure and come back and say, okay, from people who saw this ad against people who didn't see this ad, we saw a 10% increase in brand recall. And so it gives you a really good way to understand how things are performing. You can also get that down to a creative level, so you can tell which creatives are having the most impact on new customers. And then the next thing takes it slightly further still and allows you to have a look at your overall performance and the impact that it's having. So using geographic split tests really allows you to isolate the overall impact and performance of any media that you're running. So the best thing to do is to choose 2 areas that have similar demographics, socioeconomics, similar brand awareness for you, similar site performance, and then most importantly, the same media laydown. What you can then do is run media in one and not run media in the other. In this case, it would be Facebook awareness campaigns, and then look at the top line performance over a period of time. So if you do a month-on-month comparison and you say, okay, in North Carolina, we didn't run the media, in South Carolina, we did run the media, and in South Carolina, the overall business saw a 5% uplift, you can then work that back into an incremental ROI driven by the awareness campaigns that you've created. So that moves us on from awareness to engagement. Now, engagement is where a lot of people are focusing with Facebook. This is where you will see the most things. The type of creators we recommend are video, carousels. Again, experience ads can be really good. Just to touch a bit more on experience ads, they're much more customizable and allow you to not drive someone straight to your site, but to build almost a small microsite within Facebook that improves that journey. It doesn't rely on people with slow internet connections to load those pages, but it just gives them a bit more depth to what you can show in some sort of relatively limited space within the Facebook newsfeed. The placements you should be looking at are the newsfeed, Messenger, and the audience network that we'll talk about a little bit more. And the KPIs really should be site visits through clicks, site engagement, so how long are these people spending on your site, how many pages are they visiting, and also customer signups. In a GDPR, CCPA world, customer signups are actually becoming more and more important. So first of all, the audience network. So for those of you who aren't aware, the audience network is the equivalent of Google's display network and AdX. So Facebook owns hundreds and thousands of websites outside of its sort of natural space, which allows you to run what are much more native ads, because Facebook really was the first real type of native that we had. These type of ads integrate much better. You will see much lower CPCs than what you see on normal feed ads, but you will see much lower CTRs as well, because it is much more what you'd refer to as more display than Facebook. But what we've seen is because of the much lower CPMs, you get much lower CPCs, so it can be a really good way to drive qualified traffic to your website. And you still get to use all of the incredible Facebook targeting options. I think at this point, data really is the most important thing that you can work with. Facebook's got loads of in-market audience stuff available. Lookalikes are probably one of the most powerful targeting things that is out there. We, in some instances, see lookalikes perform almost as well as remarketing, which is absolutely crazy. And then for a lot of brands, when you talk about that socioeconomic side of things, they know how much money someone needs to earn to be interested. Now, Facebook buys in a lot of data. It also has job titles and things in there. So you can really start qualifying that income to make sure that you're hitting the right area of your demographics as well. And then we have collection ads. So collection ads are this really powerful thing that fall into the experience ad category. So this is where you can really show, okay, here's my ad, and then you can show a selection of products underneath. And then you click through and it just gives more information on each of those products as well. There's the ability to also show an image and tag the products within that image. So if you work in the home category, you could show a bedroom and you could show all the products tagged in that image underneath. It's a really powerful way to just build in more information for your consumer, and they have really, really high engagement rates and click-through rates, so a really good way to drive those more qualified users and that qualified traffic. And then that takes us on to another type of customer experience ad, which is lead forms. So these are really powerful, particularly when it comes to GDPR and also CCPA, where we know we're losing a lot of email addresses from customers. What this does is it allows you to create a form. They never have to come through to your website, and it will actually auto-populate with the information that Facebook has got for you. So it really does reduce down how much information people are required to give you. We know form length can be a real turn-off from a conversion rate element, but they also never have to leave Facebook, and you've got that information. So that's definitely a powerful element. We've seen reductions in cost per sign up of up to 50% using this, rather than trying to send someone through to the website. And then the final thing is Messenger. Now, this is less of an ad type, and the example on the right is something that Joystick built, which is actually AI allowing you to build an element of a conversation without having to have someone answer from Messenger. I think we really underestimate how important it is to continually try and have conversations with our customers. Now, from an engagement side of things, if you can really drive someone into Messenger and start having a conversation with them, especially if it's through AI, so it doesn't take any work flow or any time from anyone, that's a really, really powerful way for you to begin that conversation with a customer and start building your brand affinity with them before they've even purchased from you for the first time. We know how difficult it is to build customer loyalty in this day and age, and beginning this conversation and giving customers good service is a really important way to do that. And having those conversations through Messenger is a really good way to do it. And then finally, moving on to the conversion section. So this really is all about sales, leads, customer signups. Like, what is your business trying to drive? Everything is ultimately pushing people down to make this decision. From a creative side of things, dynamic product ads are awesome in this. I think anyone who's got a feed that they can use should definitely be running with this. We know creative performs so much better when it's aligned with what a customer wants. If they've looked at products, show them the products. I know sometimes it feels it can be a little bit spammy, but you can't argue with the performance that they drive. And then just those basic single image and carousel ads are also really important here. And again, this comes from when it comes to conversion, particularly when you're talking about retargeting, make sure you have that breadth. Make sure you're hitting people where they are. And the first part of that is Facebook Marketplace. So Facebook Marketplace is an opportunity to hit people who are in a purchase mode on Facebook. As someone who's just moved from the UK to the US, this was for both selling things in the UK, but then also buying things in the US, huge for us. And you are in a buying mode. It is a marketplace. It's not that dissimilar to eBay, and we know eBay has huge reach and performance is really strong when people work with eBay. So integrating your business and your product into where this is and into this Facebook Marketplace area where you can buy ads is definitely a really, really good way to A, extend your reach, but B, hit people in a buying mode while they're on Facebook. So this just goes down to make sure your retargeting is going to convert your visitors. Show them the products that they have viewed, show them categories that have viewed, make sure you're driving them in and they can see your products. Don't just show them bland grey messaging. Make sure that it's very precise. You've probably spent budget on getting these people in. Don't fall at the last hurdle by not spending the money to convert them. And then make sure you can measure the campaign's ability to drive conversions. So this is another thing that Facebook offers, which is conversion lifts. So very similar to the brand lift, where it's more based on the sort of survey responses. This is actually focused on, okay, let's show some people ads, let's not show some people in the same audience ads, and let's look at the uplift in sales, because incrementality is a huge thing when it comes to retargeting. We know a lot of people are like, well, I've already spent all of that money. Is retargeting not just going to steal away some of that value, and I'm paying for people who are going to convert anyway? This will allow you to know and understand that, run that conversion test, do a holdout, and look at the uplift, and it will show you whether it is worth your business running these ads. And then we just want to call out some case studies of what we've delivered as we've moved through the funnel. So starting with June London, who are a global footwear player, really using video to help drive branding. And we saw using video a 96% uplift in Facebook likes against running static ads. That is really powerful. It shows the value that running video can have. And video can be not just daunting to produce, but quite a daunting channel to get into. So using Facebook is a good middle ground where a lot of people are familiar with it, and it really allows you to sort of tread lightly and, again, just benefit from all the capacity that Facebook has from a targeting standpoint. As we move further through the funnel into an engagement side of things, working with Cotswold Outdoor, who are a UK brand similar to REI in the US. They're an outdoor retailer, and they work with the National Trust, which is the equivalent of the National Park Service over here in the US. And if you're a member of the National Trust, you can get a 15% discount. And we sent a lot of people to the National Trust pages and then built lookalikes to then drive to the National Trust pages on Cotswold Outdoor. Using these lookalikes, we saw a 680% increase in traffic. The other thing was, because these were National Trust members though, and they had a specific discount code, if you looked at the offline performance as well, because of that discount code, in store, there was also a 62% uplift year on year in the revenue being driven in store against the previous year, just because of running this campaign. So again, this shows how you can start trying to link Facebook to offline activity as well, which we know is also a huge challenge for people. And then again, as we move into Facebook advertising more, and we move into that bottom of the funnel element, and I think this becomes even more important now at this time, make sure you're using your CRM data, not just to target, but also to drive lookalikes. That is the most valuable data that you have, particularly as we're going through this, and you might expect some of your database to be coming back and purchasing again, and they might be delaying some of those purchases. we want to make sure that you're moving through and you're targeting those people and you're re-engaging with those people. We did that for My Wardrobe, and using their CRM data, we saw a 100% increase in revenue against what was forecast, and conversion rates of up to 9%. And a lot of that was driven by re-engaging with their customer database. Facebook is such an important way to do that to help support your email activity. Thank you very much. Please put your questions in the chat box. And I know there's one already there, so we can start working through.
Thank you very much, Craig. That was amazing. I'm always dumbfounded at how much information you can squeeze in a presentation like this. That was a lot of stuff that I think was really valuable. So as Craig said, please put your questions into the chat and we'll address them. I do have a question while we wait for that for you, Craig. So I know a lot of advertisers use Facebook for specific reasons and don't really look at the holistic funnel the way that you explained it. If you're going to switch to a full funnel strategy, how would you break out your budget? Like where would you put your budget first, and how would that trickle either up the funnel or down the funnel?
Yeah, so I think the way we approach things, because so many, and this even hits CFOs now, who are probably the most important people to persuade in this conversation, you start with the bottom of the funnel. Everyone knows retargeting works. I think the next bit is to start hitting that engagement side of things. So start with those lookalikes and start expanding out and looking at those traffic driving ones. Once you've proved that those can work, that then really allows you to branch into the awareness side of things. But make sure with your awareness, you know what you're trying to achieve, and make sure you're doing it in a way that you can tie back to a metric that has been agreed by your CFO as an important metric. Because ultimately, as this trickles up the funnel, you have to think about the funnel of your business and making sure that the key decision makers in your business are happy with the results and are aware of the results. If you know that's going to have to come down to revenue, make sure you do that with a conversion test or a geographic test to prove the value of that.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's go to some questions that are coming in here. So we have a question here. The first question is from Sohib. What platform do you recommend for attribution performance or attributing performance? I find Facebook inflates figures.
Yes, this is a really, really difficult question, and I haven't mentioned walled gardens yet, but I will mention walled gardens. Google, Facebook, Amazon, the big three. Unfortunately, we're probably never going to live in a world where the three allow their data to come together. So when it comes to attribution, it depends what your source of truth is and where you are as a business. There's a whole conversation to be had around how to attribute correctly. I think it's find your source of truth and find a metric within Facebook that matches that. If you're using GA last click and that's what the business uses, you probably need to be trying to find something in Facebook which is likely a one-day post-click element to do that. If not, then it's about using something like a geographic test or a conversion uplift test to prove what that incremental value is, and just understanding how the Facebook numbers reflect on your overall business numbers and just taking them with a pinch of salt. But yes, Facebook does definitely inflate numbers. Unfortunately, there isn't really a better way to fully measure the value of Facebook outside of their numbers.
Thank you. Lisa asks, can I use third-party data within Facebook?
Yes. I mean, Facebook is a weird one because obviously a lot of the data is Facebook's itself. But that's probably more second-party data than it is third. But Facebook is also buying in huge amounts of data as well to further supplement their data. My general rule of thumb is I've not found anything that I want to target within Facebook that I've not been able to. It's just about searching, knowing what you're looking for, and building out from there. So I know there's Oracle data pushed into there. Facebook buys data off MasterCard. There's huge elements of third-party data that they buy in to help supplement their data further.
All right, great. Our next question comes from Janine, and she says, the brand awareness study is a pretty big investment. What do you suggest for advertisers that cannot use brand studies?
Yeah, definitely. It can be. The thing that we've seen a lot with Facebook recently is that they're starting to make them more accessible. If you're based in the US, there are now ways to run this without actually having a huge budget. They will ask you for a smaller budget. It won't have to go through an account manager. So they are now starting to allow some of these elements within Facebook Business Manager to be self-managed, which is really good. The other thing is then I would say do a geographic test. If you don't have that budget, do it on a much smaller level, find an area to invest in and look at what that uplift is on your business. We talked about overall increases in business revenue for certain areas, but I'd also say look at search volume in those areas as well. Your brand search volume is another really good way to indicate the brand awareness that you're driving, because ultimately the number of brand searches that you have is going to help inform how well you're doing from a brand awareness side of things.
All right, great, thank you. Nate asks, in each stage of the funnel, there are different pieces of content that you're gonna need. How many do you recommend per stage?
Yeah, so this is a really difficult question, and a lot of it comes down to your budget. So how Facebook runs on learning periods of 7 days. So every test needs to run for at least 7 days before Facebook will start being able to optimize it efficiently. So it's then, does Facebook have enough data within a 7-day period to be able to do that? Generally, Facebook are looking for about 50 conversions during that 7-day period. So you need to look at it and understand, if you're only getting 100 conversions over a 7-day period, you can really only test 2 layers within that to make sure that you're driving those things. If you're worried about conversion numbers, you can optimize towards something more like traffic and not sales, which will help you make decisions faster. So it really does depend on budget. We would say never test more than 3 variations at a time, because you just start getting lost in the noise if you have more than 3.
Okay, thank you. Amanda asks, if you have a small budget and you can't fulfill the whole funnel, is there a specific part of the funnel you should concentrate on?
That's a great question, and it really depends where you are as a business. As a performance marketer, gut feel is always going to be go for the bottom of the funnel, make sure you're converting those users. That is important. It's then short term versus long term. Like, what are you trying to achieve? If you're a brand new business, just focusing on the bottom of the funnel really isn't going to cut it, because you're not pushing people there or building that awareness for people to come into the bottom of your funnel. So it really does depend where you are on your business journey, and also how saturated your product is within a market. If we take the sort of medicinal cannabis element, that's still a relatively new market where you need to be building awareness of not only your brand, but also awareness of the industry. So it depends of your role within that. If you're the biggest player in an industry and people just don't know that they can buy these things online, it's your responsibility to not only try and drive your own brand awareness, but awareness of the industry as well. So it really does vary. If you've got a smaller budget, my gut says go with conversion, but there's so many more decisions to be made on that.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much, Craig. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we're not going to be able to get to all of the questions. We will address all of the questions and provide everybody with an answer. This was great. Thank you again, Craig, for taking the time and for answering all those questions. If you found this valuable and you're interested in increasing your skill set during some downtime that you may have right now, I recommend you go to ignite.incubeta.com and look at all of the different topics that we offer. If you're attending this this webinar, you will receive a 15% discount. You can just use the code IGNITE15, and you can look at all the different webinars that are going to be available. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed it.